Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. Time for Spawn Daily and time for Spawn number 24, which is part 4 of the Hunt series, which was Todd McFarlane returning to both penciling and writing duties after 5 issues off. The 2 issues that Tom Orzechowski and Andrew Grossberg did, and the 3 preceding that Grant Morrison did. So we talked about it previously in a couple of the episodes about how McFarlane really coming back on, kind of, okay, remind us where all the different plot threads were going. And he did a relatively reasonable job of bringing them all together. And it feels like a little bit of an abrupt ending, but it's still a very satisfying one. So I really enjoyed it. And the other thing I'll mention real quick, as this is coming out January 12th, 2022, the final series debut of the Spawn universe is also coming out today. It's called The Scorched, and it's basically like a team book, right? We have King Spawn, we have Gunslinger Spawn, and then The Scorched has She Spawn, Redeemer, Gunslinger Spawn, Plague Spawn, and Medieval Spawn together on a team. And I got a huge chuckle out of it because so the credits, it's written by Sean Lewis, right? This is the way it's credited: script and plot, Sean Lewis. And below that, in a smaller font, it says Todd McFarlane, additional dialogue.
That's funny.
And
Because
I just got such a kick out of that because we have talked extensively. And again, it's a little bit of a product of its
yeah,
time that this comic came out in the 90s. But
that's funny.
what better purpose other than drawing it, obviously, because Todd's art is still incredible, but what better purpose for Todd McFarlane to serve on a Spawn Universe book than to add more dialogue?
Oh, that's hilarious. That is
So
hilarious.
yeah, I got to kick. I haven't finished reading it. I'm about halfway through. It's a huge book. I think it's a 7.99 book. It's
Uh-huh.
like 60 pages. It's 59 pages is how long the digital copy is, and obviously that does include like the cover, and I don't know if it has additional covers in the back. Um, but yeah, pretty interesting. But yeah, it does have the extra covers in the back, and there's quite a few. So you're probably looking at 48 pages of story. But one of the things I'm struck by is I'm reading this, and I've been reading King Spawn and I've been reading Gunslinger Spawn, and I'm sort of powering through them, even though a lot of the things that they're referring to, I have no idea. Like, and that's
Yeah.
part of the reason that Rocky and I are doing this. Just a reminder, what we are doing, we're basically trying to read all the issues of the main series Spawn to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Spawn and to get caught up so we can be caught up and understand what's going on in this Spawn universe. So by the time the year finishes up, it'll be about 340 issues. So we should be able to get through all of them, provided we don't get spawned out. But yeah, I had to mention that it's out today, and Todd McFarlane additional dialogue, like that could be every Spawn book. Absolutely amazing. So anyway, what did you think of 24? Did you like the way that the Hunt story arc finished up, Rocky?
Uh, I, I actually, I really love the visuals. There's one particular scene where that is just an absolutely amazing double page spread where Spawn saves his best friend. I loved it.
Yep.
I thought it was a little too. I thought it was very convenient.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very very convenient. But I still liked it because I really love all these villains. I like the fact that Jason Wynn is still active at the end as a villain. So is Vito Gravano. And Sam and Twitch are still okay. The F, the all the players uh, that are causing chaos in Al Simmons' life and Terry Fitzgerald and Wanda Blake's life, they're still active, and I actually find myself not wanting them taken off the playing field yet. so
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah. I was going to mention that. I talked about the ending being a little abrupt, and I'm going to talk about it when we summed it up as well. It's like for a guy that Spawn, who has embraced final solutions for certain situations, obviously Billy Kincaid is the first one that springs to mind. He lets all these guys live, and we'll talk about it when we as we do the recap here. So let me go ahead and dive in. Art and story by Todd McFarlane, with a special thanks to Greg Capullo. The art are the letters rather by Tom Orzakowski, colors by Steve Olaf and Oli Optics, and dedicated to Joe Sinnott, legendary inker. Did a lot of work with Jack Kirby, especially. So the issue kicks off right where the last issue, where 23 left off, with Sam and Twitch there in the alley with Spawn and Terry Fitzgerald both kind of unconscious at their feet. And all Sam Burke can think about is, man, this is going to be a lot of paperwork. And Twitch, with his normal kind of straight deadpan sense of humor, says, "So it would seem, sir, but it's not too long before they get a bit of a shock, because they check Spawn for pulse, which he probably never has a pulse, right? He's dead, and it's not even a true human body. We've talked about that a lot. He starts to pull Spawn's mask off, and Sam and Twitch both get a big shock because they, get a look at the hamburger face of Spawn, like, oh my God, Jesus, says Sam Burke. What the hell happened to him?
Yeah.
And it's not bad enough that he's got the hammered, burnt-looking face. Remember, it's still stitched up with the shoelace right down the middle. So, and Terry Fitzgerald is not looking much better. He's got a swollen eye, busted lip, and as they're kind of propping Spawn up against the wall, his body there, they're kind of rehashing what was going on, what they were told, what they learned last issue. And Sam mentions, the only thing we really know about this guy is the bag lady called him Al. And Terry Fitzgerald, as he's coming out of his unconsciousness, hears that. He's like, Al? What? No, Al? Could it be? And he's got that thought has been planted in his head. And we wondered last time if Terry or Wanda would be the first to discover that Spawn was Al. So maybe Terry's got the lead here. Maybe he's the lead horse in that race. I guess we'll see. So once Sam Burke sees that Terry's conscious, he immediately kind of attacks him. He accosts him. He's like grabbing him by the suit jacket. He's like, "What's going on here? I got about 200 questions." I'm like, I get it. I get that you're curious and you want to know what's going on, Burke. And you got, I mean, he's a good detective, so he's got that insatiable need to want answers to his questions. But this guy just got the crap kicked out of him. Probably has a concussion.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't need to shake him up.
Sam's a little hard on everybody here. He's kind of a hard ass. He's a hard ass.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, typically a guy who's a big of a slob and doesn't take care of himself in terms of his weight and his appearance is, usually they tend to let things go a little more easygoing. It's sort of part of that personality. But yeah, that's not Sam at all. So he does call for a couple of ambulances and asks some uniformed cops to cordon off the area. But unbeknownst to him, but what we know is that Jason Wynn has his fingers everywhere, right? In all of law enforcement, CIA, FBI, even down to the local precinct houses. So once he mentions, when Sam calls it in, he mentions Terry Fitzgerald. It's like, get me everything you have on Fitzgerald, Terrence D. Says he's with the CIA, but doesn't have any ID on him. Then the other cops in the precinct who are basically under the thumb of Jason Wynn, either being paid off or maybe he's got dirt on him one way or another. They already start planning to nail the traitor, as they put it. And then the scene actually shifts to Jason Wynn. They say, okay, they found Terry Fitzgerald. Here's what's happening. And Jason was like, no, nobody gets him but us. This time I'm going to fry that son of a bitch, he says. Make sure the area is so tight that the wind can't even get out. I won't lose him again. So,
That's a good line. I like that.
yeah, yeah. And this isn't a big surprise, right? We know how corrupt Jason Wynn is. We know he had Al Simmons killed, and we know what he's capable of. And I think he realizes, and we've talked about it in when we've covered previous episodes, he knows that the frame job that he's concocted for Terry Fitzgerald will probably stand up to some scrutiny, but at some point it's a house of cards. And so it's not a big surprise that seems kind of worried here. Like, I need to get this resolved quickly, and he's like, I need him to be dead, and you got to make it look like an accident. That's what he tells his guys. Like, he knows that Fitzgerald's no traitor, but this is what needs to be done. If you want to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs. That's his kind of his attitude about it. So meanwhile, Wanda and Cyan are back home. They've got a couple of guards, right? FBI guards outside their house for their own protection. But really, and even Wanda uh, feels this way. She's like, are the guards really there to protect her, or is she being detained, right? The neighbors that
Yeah.
she thought she could trust all of a sudden were too afraid to come forward and tell the truth. What was Terry actually involved in? She doesn't even know who she can trust. So you definitely feel bad for her. She's stuck between a rock and a hard place as well. And again, all because Jason Wynn is manipulating events, because he's a bad guy and he needs a fall guy, right? He needs Terry Fitzgerald to take the fall. So um, again, McFarlane early in this issue is touching all the characters, giving them all a little bit of time on the screen here to let us know where they are. So meanwhile, back in the alley, Sam's trying to get answers, and Terry's telling him what he knows. But remember, Terry doesn't have the whole picture either, right? Like he's like, the mob told me to come here because they had my wife and daughter held hostage. That's what they told me. So I came here and I expected to find the mob, but instead there was this giant 10-ton cyborg, and Sam's not buying it. He's like, yeah, yeah. So you're a G-man and you're expecting to meet with the mob, and then they sucker you and send a cyborg down here, and this dead guy, this dead hero over here, seems to have a personal reason to try and save you, and you have no ID. So like it seems like a pretty far-fetched story. You don't blame Sam Burt for not buying it. Meanwhile, we see a couple of homeless guys, some of Spawn's friends, that see Al pretty messed up, and they're like, well, we got to go get some help. Like, I mean, they know that that Al's probably not dead, but they also know they can't take on these two cops by themselves. So they run off to get some help. And meanwhile, Sam loses his patience with with Terry and again starts roughing him up, uh, because Terry's like, you got to let me go. The mafia's got my wife and kid. I got to get out of here now. I got to go track him down. Sam's like, you're not going anywhere, man. I don't care what your problems are. And even Twitch is like, dude, chill. And he's like, nobody's telling me to back off. This one's been dogging me for too long. And don't forget, they also don't know the mystery of who Spawn is, the red caped figure that they saw outside of Billy Kincaid's house. They were taken off duty for a couple of weeks while the investigation, because the dead body of Billy Kincaid was found in their office. So for Sam Burke, it seems very, very personal. And Terry's arguing with him like, "Are you deaf? The mob has him. They're gonna kill him. I don't care." And Terry just starts running,
Yeah,
even when.
and he doesn't
Go ahead.
know that it's all a bluff, that the mafia doesn't have on it. That was all a bluff just to get him, just to threaten him and antagonize him. So it's
Yeah, exactly.
and true to Todd McFarlane, he's nice enough to remind us of that in an editorial note. It was
Oh
actually a
yeah,
bluff. See
yeah.
issue 22. So spelling everything out again.
Yeah, and like I said, even the story that Terry knows, even what he's telling these guys isn't the whole story, and some of it is flat out wrong. Like, yeah, the mob doesn't really have his wife and daughter, but he doesn't care. Like, even if he's going to be shot in the back, he runs off. He says he's got to go and rescue him. And meanwhile, as he says this, Spawn starts to regain consciousness. He hears that Wanda could be in trouble, so obviously that gets his attention, kind of wakes him up. Meanwhile, we shift over to Tony Twist, Vito Gravano, check in on him for the first time. Um, so we find out that they think that Overkill did the job, right? That Terry Fitzgerald has been killed. They think Terry Fitzgerald is Spawn, and so all Vito Gravano wants is confirmation. I want to make sure Overkill did his job. We need Fitzgerald dead. And then as he gets interrupted by a phone call, and there's other guys from the cartel that are threatening him, saying, "Hey, we're having a meeting next Thursday, and the other guys are unhappy with your dealings, and you got 6 days to get everything put back together." Well, this really ticks him off. He's not used to being threatened, right? It says he's the one that threatens, and so he tells somebody. So Gino was the guy that called, apparently head of some other family, and so he tells his guys, send somebody over to Gino's restaurant, take his top chef, and cut his hands off. In the meantime, find me Fitzgerald's body, whatever's left of it. I'm going to take it to the meeting on Thursday, and that should shut everybody up, show them that I took care of this problem, right? Because again, what they think is that Terry Fitzgerald is Spawn, and Spawn was the one at the beginning of the series that was stealing all the hearts or taking the hearts out of all these mafia guys, killing all these mafia guys, and they blame Spawn when really it was the Violator all along. So uh, as all the cops start converging into the alley, we are reminded that Terry Fitzgerald's a hot commodity. Everybody wants to write the police, the FBI. He's still being blamed for the 2 dead FBI agents in front of his house. So, I mean, when a cop goes down, when hunting for a cop killer or, federal agent or something like that, that all bets are off. That's usually when people don't even survive to get taken into custody, right? They get shot uh, while trying to be apprehended. So Terry's
Yeah.
a very wanted man at this point.
Yeah, and
Uh,
he's pretty screwed, and I don't even think at this point Sam and Twitch don't even realize that, and it's interesting. What I like about the scene is that we find out why Twitch is called Twitch.
yeah, exactly.
You know,
So I'm surprised that Sam Burke even attempts to chase Terry as he's running, but Twitch
he's a
is
fairly heavy
yeah,
set.
yeah, exactly. But Twitch is very thin and very fast, and we find out the reason he's called Twitch is because he doesn't twitch. We know he's an expert marksman, and that's all part of it. So he manages to outflank Terry, and as Terry rounds a corner, he gets a gun right in the face, and he kind of gives it up. He slumps to the ground. Sam Burke catches up, and again, I'm surprised that he catches up as fast as he does. And he even says, "Man, I thought I was going to have a heart attack." And Twitch is like, "Well, good for you, sir," which is a funny line. So they're like, "I'm getting sick and tired of this. We're going to take you down to the station, Terry. We're going to get some answers." But luckily for Terry, the rest of Spawn's allies, all his homeless friends, have been following. The 2 that saw Spawn initially, they went and got a bunch of friends. They've gathered up sticks and bottles and pieces of wood and whatever they can find, and they're not really trying um, to hurt Sam or Twitch. They're just trying to create a distraction that will allow Sam and Terry to escape. So Terry definitely takes advantage of it and starts running off down the alley. But just as that happens, there's now 2 CIA agents that are coming upon the scene, and they spot Terry running toward them down the alley, and they're under orders from Jason Wynn to take Terry out, right? Make it look like an accident, whatever. So, hey, why not say, yeah, we were pulling into the alley because we heard something was going down, so we're pulling into the alley, and this guy came running out of nowhere, and we hit him. And sorry, he's dead, but he's a traitor anyway. So who's going to feel sorry for him? That's what they're thinking. So the guy driving the car actually speeds up. Meanwhile, Sam and Twitch are like, we need to fall back. We need to get some cover. What's strange here? It's like, again, I'm not going to nitpick too much. A little expositional in this issue, but typical McFarlane, not too bad. But the one thing that did bug me is that Sam calls Terry Fitzgerald Fitzy. And we've seen him called Fitzy before, but mostly by friends or mockingly in threatening notes. I just don't see a cop like Bert calling him Fitzy. He's not a friend. He's a perp, as he would refer to him, or a suspect.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was strange. You grab Fitzy, I'll cover you. Everyone's going crazy tonight. I just
Yeah,
thought that
well,
was
he also identified himself as a CIA. He identified himself as CIA, Terry,
yeah,
but I guess they don't believe him, although they did call it in. So I
yeah,
thought maybe they would show him a little bit more respect than they did. Twitch showed him a little bit of respect, but then I mean,
yeah. Sam
obviously he
not
was
at
beat
all.
up pretty bad. They didn't. I guess they could be forgiven for not believing him because they did stumble upon quite an extraordinary scene
Yeah,
with
yeah.
overkill there, taking out Spawn and Terry. So it was. I could
Yeah,
understand.
and that's the thing. Like Terry, for all their suspicions of him, he's a regular guy. You think they would be more worried about tracking down Overkill, who giant hulking menace, but whatever. It's a comic. Don't examine it too close there. So anyway, Terry turns to run, uh, and it says too late. He's right in the middle of the headlights. He knows his luck has finally run out when all of a sudden, out of nowhere, and this is that fantastic scene that Rocky was talking about. You can see it on YouTube there if you're watching along, following along with us.
Gorgeous
Spawn,
scene.
yeah, he just stands right in front of the car and uses up some energy to do this. We're told that The car will look as if it was impacted a steel pole, which for all intents and purposes it did. The engine gets pushed back into the passenger compartment. Both occupants will never walk again, which I suppose kind of serves them right. You know, they're trying to murder an innocent man. We're told that Al does expend energy to do this. He's increasing his density to the extent that it would drain his irreplaceable energy, but he did this willingly because he's saving a friend. So yeah, he screams, "Get down, Terry!" And he's not telling him to dance. He's telling him to duck. And yeah, I mean, it's just a fantastic,
What
fantastic scene.
what I find uh, frustrating, and again, you and I are sounding probably we keep repeating ourselves, but this is such a beautiful page. This exposition was completely unnecessary. Everything on this page was unnecessary. We didn't need any of it. We didn't need any exposition. Did we really need the you know? There's an actual expository exposition box. It says the car will look as if it impacted a steel pole. For all intents and purposes, it did. Well, we know
Yeah.
that. Look at this
Yep.
gorgeous page. You don't have to tell us. We
Yep.
know it. I mean, we know it. You don't. Why tell us? The engine that rammed into the passenger compartment, shattering their leg. Do we really need to know that the occupant? First of all, the occupants are never going to walk again. I figure the occupants are dead. Why do we care
Yeah.
about the occupants? It
Yeah.
doesn't need to. We don't need to be told that. The reader does not need to know. Leave that to my imagination. Let me imagine what happened to the occupants. You don't have to spell this out for me, Todd. But he does, and it's completely unnecessary, but it's definitely in keeping with his style that he's whenever he's as you said, he's very wordy, and he just wants to make sure the reader knows exactly what he's thinking. It's like it's in the script, so it's got to be on the page. Well, no, not everything in the script needs to be on the page. And it's funny because he's such an amazing artist, and he can convey what's in his mind so beautifully with his art that I'm so surprised. I remain surprised how much he feels he needs to tell us when he's so good at showing us.
Yeah. I would say the only thing that we need to know is that this did take some energy from Spawn, but you don't even need any work.
Oh,
Just put the energy counter, in the bottom
yeah.
corner there, and drop the numbers.
Yeah, well, that still could have
Nobody
that could
even
have been
really.
said in passing on the next page too. Plus, we knew that he
Yeah.
got his
Yeah.
powers from Houdini in a previous issue, a couple issues ago. Taught him how to use his powers. For all intents and purposes, this could have been the suit doing this. It's unimportant. I don't care about that. This is just an awesome scene. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just it's weird. I don't know. That's just how I felt about it. But anyway, still beautiful art.
Yeah, but I mean, to your point, it probably even more impactful if there were no words on the page other than "smash." I don't even know if you need to get down Terry.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's like you're telling him to dance. He's going to start like he's on Soul Train or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, as the horde converges upon him, Spawn stands and stares. So you got the CIA coming. The cops are there, and Spawn realizes that he's been hiding himself. He's been trying to stay under the radar, and that hasn't worked too well. So true to his training as a CIA operative, if one tactic's not working, try something else. So he's going to try fear. He's going to let everybody know who he is and that they need to fear him. So uses a little bit more of his power, and he leaves a message on the side of the wall building next to the alley there. These alleys belong to Spawn. So he's letting them know, in the words of McFarlane here, that the boogeyman really does exist, and he's going to make sure everybody gets that message. And then he kind of disappears. And where he goes, well, he's got some messages to deliver, three of them to be exact. And the first one's to Jason Wynn. So pops into Wynn's office, starts talking about things that he really shouldn't know, but knows because first of all, he's Al Simmons and has history with Wynn. Wynn's not aware of that. Second of all, we know that he's snuck into uh, the USSG, uh, United States Secret Group or whatever it's called, and he's gathered a bunch of intel on Jason Wynn, and so he uses that intel and says, "You need to back off of Terry Fitzgerald. You need to make him squeaky clean. You need to get rid of all the evidence that you manufactured to frame him. Otherwise, I'm going to show this file to the president and the Joint Chiefs, and that'll be the end of you." So Wynn scans the file. No one alive knew some of the items it contains, and that's a great way for McFarlane, because still no one alive besides Wynn himself knows it because Spawn's not alive. So
Yep.
Spawn's next visit is to Sam, who's having a late night snack, straight out of like the Honeymooners, Ralph Cramden, and he gives him a file on Chief Banks, who is the chief of police, and again, information that nobody should possibly have. Um, and what I wondered about this, like, it's kind of interesting that Spawn didn't go to Chief Banks directly, So, but he's basically telling him to tell Chief Banks to drop the Fitzgerald case and leave my alley alone.
Yeah,
If not, people are going to learn about his extracurricular activities.
yeah.
But now Sam Burke knows about the bad stuff that Chief's done, possibly illegal stuff. Isn't that putting Sam in a bad position, right? Because now, I mean, it could go one of two ways. Sam can hold it over the Chief, but the Chief
Yeah.
might go behind his back and try to take out Sam. Sam
Well,
isn't not exactly undead and protected because he has superpowers the way Spawn is.
yeah. No, I agree with you, and I'll go one step farther. As much as I mentioned earlier, as much as I like all these bad guys still being on the playing field, Wynn, and of course Vito, and of course the police chief, but and of course on the next page he of course he threatens Vito Gravano with a file as well. But I'm openly wondering, from a storytelling point of view, why doesn't Spawn kill Wynn and Vito? Why
Yeah,
doesn't he just kill him? Like, I don't understand why he let them live. He could have, why not kill Wynn, kill Vito, and then give the file to the second in command? And that way it would still clear Terry Fitzgerald's name. Why leave those guys on the playing field? Because they're still a potential threat. And then they give the file to Sam. Or even kill the police chief. I mean, it's not as if Al Simmons is adverse to killing. We know that for sure. So it just
yeah,
seems it's a little bit curious why he did that, but I don't know.
yeah. And I said that at the top, right? He had no compunction about killing Billy Kincaid, but now all of a sudden, when it would very much behoove him to at least kill Wynn and Vito Gravano, they certainly have earned it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he lets him off the hook, and it just seems strange. What he threatens Gravano with is he has a file that basically shows all of Gravano's organization's objectives for the next 6 months. And he says, unless you want the cops crawling up your rear, you'll leave Fitzgerald alone and stay the hell out of my alley. So, yeah, again, I mean, the only thing that I can possibly think is that, Spawn thinks, well, if I take out Gravano, the next guy, I have to threaten him. You know what I mean? Like someone will just
Yeah.
come and take his place and be a pain in my ass. Let me leave somebody in charge who's actually scared of me. I guess that would work. And maybe it's the same with Wynn, although that doesn't that feels less effective against Wynn, because you're right. I mean, supposedly the group that Wynn runs is on the side of right. They're on,
Yeah.
they're in charge of all the government intelligence, and they should be doing the right thing. So you would think take out the poison apple at the top, and it won't spoil the barrel. But yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know, reasons, I guess, because
Yeah.
McFarlane has other plans.
I,
Uh,
I will say too, just to continue a little bit more about Jason Wynn here. What I found interesting is, despite McFarlane's inclination toward heavy exposition, we still have no mention or indication if Jason Wynn has any recollection of him being the anti-Spawn. Like, there's no
yep.
mention of it at all. When the Spawn confronted Jason Wynn and threatened him with this file, I, for some reason I thought, well, maybe Wynn would say something, but we still have no indication if Wynn, like, does Wynn literally have no memory?
Yeah,
Uh,
he has no memory. That's what we
it,
were told, a few issues ago, that he
it's
has no memory of that.
it's
He
so
remember he
so
woke.
weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he woke up in the curled up in the fetal position in his office with no memory of where he was for those 2 days. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, it could have been interesting here if like you said, seeing Spawn like jogged his memory. Like, at least, why does that guy look familiar? Something to make us think that.
Yeah, well, it's
Uh,
weird. And he's so concerned about, was the president that concerned that Wynn was gone for 2 days, that Wynn has to scapegoat Terry Fitzgerald for it?
yeah,
It's the strangest thing. And then Vito Gravano thinks Terry is Spawn. The cops want to go after Terry for stealing weapons, and the FBI is going after Terry Fitzgerald for killing two of their agents. Which, incidentally, I guess it's Wynn. Wynn will make sure that Terry will get won't be blamed for killing the field agents. So, it's funny. Wynn has all this power to clear Terry Fitzgerald's name now, because I mean, frankly, the irony here is that Wynn wanted to have Terry Fitzgerald propped up on charges, and now all the law enforcement agencies in the country are after Terry Fitzgerald, and now suddenly, because of these files, that's just going to disappear and go away. And now
Yeah.
because Wynn is doing it and the mob is doing it, it just seems to me so ridiculously convenient. It's kind of hard to believe, but whatever, I'll buy it.
Yeah, well, I mean that's the thing, right? Like if Wynn is under suspicion, or maybe not even suspicion, maybe that's not even the right word. Just if they have doubts because he was gone for those 2 days, but he still has enough power to frame Fitzgerald. In my mind, it takes even more power to undo it, right? To try to unring the bell.
Yeah.
If he can somehow manufacture or do whatever he needs to do to clear Terry because of this threat from Spawn, why can't he manufacture stuff to clear himself for where he was those 2 days? So, but yeah, you can't think about it too close
Yeah.
because it does fall apart. It's a comic. So,
I
but anyway,
we would be remiss if we didn't mention how big this submarine sandwich is that Sam is eating. What are the odds that the Spawn shows up at Sam's apartment, Detective Sam Burke's apartment, and he's eating a giant submarine sandwich? I mean, what are the odds?
yeah, sauerkraut, Swiss cheese, pickled herring. We're
Yeah,
told.
there's a lot of detail in that sandwich. I got to give
Yeah,
credit to McFarlane. He drew a hell of a sandwich there.
yep.
That's a
Craft
manwich.
singles. Yeah, disgusting, disgusting. But
Just
anyway,
fat shaming him. I'm fat shaming Sam Burke.
yeah, you should be. Yeah, you should feel bad. Anyway, Terry is back at home. We see him there with Wanda in his arms, and he's trying to make sense of it as well. He's like, I got the entire city chasing me, and then right in the middle of the interrogation, somebody whispers something to somebody else, and bam, I'm free to go. I'm a non-issue. And Wanda's like, you know what? I won't even pretend to know what this was all about. I was scared. All I could think was losing you, and Cyan growing up without a father. Um, so I'm glad it's over. And Terry's like, yeah, I was scared too. I don't like somebody messing with our lives like that. It's got to take somebody with a lot of influence, and that's what scares me. So you can see the wheels are kind of turning for Terry. I'm sure he suspects Wynn at this point. Meanwhile, Spawn's outside in a tree overlooking the house, and he's thinking um, about his wife and his house, and he's like, "Is it? How funny is it? I have a wife that's married to somebody else. Like, yeah, she's not really your wife anymore, Alan. He's got to come to terms with that, and he still hasn't. So, but what he's worried about is the fact that he made the deal, the fact that he came back, it's having a negative impact on the people that he cares about the most. But for now, he thinks that his plan has worked. Um, showing these files to these particular people has, he hopes, the people that he cares about out of danger, and he'll worry about everything else tomorrow, is what he says. So disaster has been averted. So that's how the issue ends. The issue and the story arc end, and yeah, issue 25 up next, which has a guest artist. And again, I think 25 came out right around the time 12 or 13 came out, and they jumped forward and had some creator crossovers. So it'll be interesting. I've never read it, so I haven't read ahead either. So we'll have to see what 25 brings. But yeah, all in all, this was entertaining, if not a little convenient. And my biggest question, and Rocky mentioned it as well, it's like, why didn't he just at least kill Wynn? Like, at least. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't think anybody would really miss Gravano either. And it's surprising because he hasn't worried about killing before. But I don't know. Maybe he's turning over a new leaf.
Yeah.
Any
No.
other thoughts, Rocky?
Just that you can definitely see Wynn being a wild card here, because if Wynn is clearly extremely powerful. He's arguably the most powerful player on the field here, and if he doesn't remember what happened during those 2 days, and he became the anti-spawn, and yet somehow was able, for some reason, I had thought that he was sort of killed and became anti-spawn, but clearly he wasn't. So he was able to be made human again. Or maybe I'm wondering, maybe he's not human. Maybe Wynn has changed in some way that we don't know, and that obviously even Wynn himself doesn't know. He doesn't. The irony is that Wynn is has a lot more in common with Al Simmons than he ever could possibly imagine, and he doesn't even remember why he's got so much. I mean, he's actually shares a name, except he's the anti version of Spawn. So it's definitely Wynn. Jason Wynn is the wild card here, and that's what I like about this moving forward. And I love the fact that Vito. I love the fact that just an ordinary human mobster is elevated. I like human villains. I like sort of like a Lex Luthor because it you know, I like when ordinary humans are elevated to a status with their deviousness and evil. I like that element of the story, and I like the human element here. I love the relationship. That's one thing that McFarlane has done really well. I think I really get a sense of the relationship between Terry Fitzgerald and Wanda, and then Spawn, Al Simmons being the best friend and the first husband of Wanda. That interplay has worked very well. It's the relationships, that key relationship, that sort of love triangle, is something that actually keeps me intrigued. And for all the sort of, you know, I say friendly constructive criticism that we're giving the exposition, McFarlane has got me. I'm invested in this story, and I really am genuinely enjoying these daily reviews that we're doing.
Yeah, additional dialogue, Todd
Yeah,
McFarlane. So
that's right.
you can always count on it. So anyway, that's going to do it for this episode of Daily Spawn Daily. Everybody, hope you join us tomorrow for number 25. Don't forget, check out our DC Spotlight from Tuesday, where we cover all the DC stuff in depth. Also coming out just as audio only, like we do every Wednesday, is the New Comic Wednesday episode where we cover some Marvel and independent stuff. Uh, it is spoiler free. We just talk about the books in general, so you can check that out. And also make sure you're following us on social media because we got a lot of great interviews coming up, both on the Comic Boom YouTube channel as well as the audio only. So if you don't follow Rocky's channel, be sure you head over to YouTube, Comic Space Boom exclamation point, subscribe, ring the notification bell so you know when new content comes out. Go ahead and give this video a like. If you do follow us on or follow Rocky's channel on YouTube, but you haven't subscribed to the Comic Source audio only, just go to your favorite podcasting platform or app on your smart device, do a search for the Comic Source and subscribe there. So once again, we want to thank everybody for joining us. We appreciate the support, and we'll talk to you next time.
See you later.